Let me share the screen with you. Slide is visible. Girls, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
In unit number 2, we have seen process management and multi-processing concept. Here we are going to see multi-threading concept in inter-process communication. So in multi-processing, we have seen most of the operating system, modern operating systems are multi-processing operating systems. They allow multiple processes execute at the same time, appears to do more than one thing at a time. There are three general approaches: cooperative multiprocessing, then preemptive, and really having multiple processors. Multiple processors are executing multiple processes. If you have only one processor, then ideally it is not possible to execute multiple processes at the same time, but it appears to the user that multiple processes are executing, but it is time shared or preemptive type of processing which are sharing processors time, and it appears that multiple processes are executing. In case of multi-threading, a multi-threading program appears to do more than one thing at a time. So single program is executing different by different users or processes. Here idea similar to multi-processing, but in a single program. A same code is executing by different processors or different users. For example, in Google Chrome, I have opened Gmail, I have opened Google Meet, I have opened my PPTs, etc. So Google Meet is one program, and these all tabs are nothing but threads of Google Chrome. So within a single process, can you perform multi-processing or can you perform parallelization? Yes, that is with the help of multi-threading. It is more efficient than multi-processing. We have seen in process scheduling how it is efficient. It doesn't require extra memory or extra processor time for switching between one thread to another or interference bit of a kernel. One thread can move or they can exchange with themselves without involving operating system. So Java in programming language Java, we have a class thread. Also, we have an interface runnable, which hides all these details of multiprocessing implementation. They have provided with a class, yeah, then interface and other methods, inbuilt methods, which we can use to implement multi-programming or multiprocessing. So why we go for multi-threading? It allows you to do more than one thing at a once. Means you are playing music, you can download several files at the background, you are writing or typing some mail. So this is why we need multi-threading. So it is essential for animation. One thread does animation, another thread responds to the user input. For example, if you want to implement analog clock. So all these three hands, our hand, minute hand, and second hand should move simultaneously, but with different degrees. Second hand is moving faster than minute hand is moving faster than our hand, but all these three hands are moving simultaneously. This is possible with multi-threading. Multi-threading, what is a thread? Thread is a single flow of control. It's a single block of code. When you step through a program, you are following a thread. Means if you are not using multi-threading, any program is called a single threaded program. If you are not using multi-threading, your normal assignment, normal programming is single threaded. So all whatever we have done assignments till now, those are single threaded. So thread is an object you can create and control in case of Java if you want. Thread can go for sleep. Every program uses at least one thread, and there is a method called sleep, means thread.sleep, and it takes whatever integer value, that is milliseconds. So you can ask that thread to sleep or wait till another thread is performing its task. So this should be there, because unless and until one thread sleeps, another thread cannot enter and complete the task. And that thread sleep method should be in try and catch block, and interrupted event after this 1 second or 1000 millisecond, the thread automatically interrupts and starts resume the task back. And when you call sleep method, it works for current thread. If you have 10 threads, it is like this method work for current object. Similarly, thread sleep method or sleep method will work for current thread. Similar to process, we have different states of a thread. It can be in one of the four states. Ready state means threads are ready to run. Then running, actually doing something. Then waiting, it is waiting or blocked, need something, either a need to wake up from other thread, or it is sleeping and waiting for its time. And dead will never come again, it has finished its task. So there are four states of thread: ready, running, waiting, and dead. And these names vary across the textbook, as we have seen. There are different names for, you can call dead state as terminate state, or waiting state as block state. So different names in different textbooks. You have some control, but Java scheduler has more control on these threads. So when you call, when you create a thread, you call start method. And start method means your thread is ready to run. It is not running, it is just ready to run. Whenever system scheduler or operating system choose that thread for execution, then it is in running state. Running state means it will enter into the run method. And thread can go to sleep, or thread has to wait for certain event, then it is in wait state. From wait state, it can come back to ready state, ready to running by a scheduler, and then dead or terminated. There are two ways in Java to create a thread. One with, you can extend inbuilt class thread. This class is in java.lang package. So it is by default in Eclipse as well as NetBeans. No need to import java.lang package. You have to create your class, whatever the class animation, implement extends thread. So thread is inbuilt class. So this is my class, say animation. Class animation extends thread. So this is the way how I can create thread for my class animation. Another way is extending runnable interface. It has limit, since you can only extend one class. If I want to extend applet or another class for my animation, it is not allowed, because multiple inheritance is not allowed in Java. So the solution is, you can go with implements runnable interface. So this runnable interface is also inbuilt in java.lang package. Runnable interface internally wrapped in thread class. So how to create a thread with runnable interface? Instead of extend thread, you have to write implements runnable. And both these methods, either you go with extend thread or implements runnable, you need to provide this method public void run. Run method, you have to implement it. This is abstract in thread class as well as in runnable interface. So normally it is recommended to go with runnable interface instead of extending thread. So when we go with extend thread, so class animation extend thread, then we have to provide this run method, public void run, whatever we want the things to be done in parallel or the parallelism, though that part of the code should go into the run method. So anything else you want in a class should go outside the run method. But run method code is on the code for thread, the parallel code that you want to execute. Then you can create the object of this class animation. say anim, and this is a new thread. And to automatically thread gets created. No need to write a thread class or something, because the animation class extends thread. So whenever you create object of this class, it is a new thread, and this is a new thread is in ready state. Then you can call this anim.start method. Start method means the thread is ready to run, but it is not a method or not a function like any other function, and we are not writing start method. Scheduler, which the threads which are ready to run, scheduler will pick up that thread and put into the run method. So start is a request. Note that start is a request to the scheduler to run thread. It may not happen right away, means not in the same sequence. The thread should be eventually enter into the running state. Running state means the thread will enter into this run method and execute that particular part of the code. For runnable interface, again you are going to provide the class animation implements runnable, and you have to provide that run method. Then you're creating this object. Now creating object is not creating a thread. To create a thread with a runnable interface, you have to create object thread, say my thread, object of class thread, and pass this animation object or the object of which implements runnable interface to this thread object. So you have to call a constructor of thread object by passing this object of animation class. So this is the difference between runnable and extends thread. In case of extends thread, you are creating the object. That object itself is a thread. But when you implement runnable interface, so when you implement runnable interface, then you have to create object of the thread animation class and pass this object to thread class object. That means now my thread is your thread which you are creating, and using my thread dot start, it will call this method start, and it is now ready to run, and system will choose that thread whenever its turn is there, and it will enter into the run method. To start a thread, every thread has a start method. Either you go with runnable interface or extending thread. There is a start method. So do not write or override start. Start is system provided method. You call start, it is a request a thread to run, and scheduler eventually calls run method. But you need to supply run method. Run method is the code that you want to execute parallelly. So in thread, we have seen how to extend a thread. You have to use your class name extends thread. You have to provide run method, and how to create a thread. Create the object of your class and object name dot start. Now your thread is ready to run. And for implementing runnable, your class name extends applet or extends whatever you want to extend, and implements runnable. Then you have to provide run method, and to create thread, create object of your class, pass that object to thread class object, and call start method using thread class object. Okay, only this line is more, or one statement is more. You have to pass this object to thread class. This is the difference between creating a object thread using extending thread class or implementing runnable method. What thread can do? Thread can sleep. You can pass number of per seconds. Yield. You can check which is the current thread. You can check the priority of a thread. You can check whether the thread is live, alive, or dead. You can join two threads, etc. We are not going into that depth. So let's stop here. I'll show you one code how to create two threads and the output of those threads. Now this slide is visible. PDF file.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So thread, we have seen it is a lightweight process. It is a single sequential flow of execution within a program. Thread makes possible of implementation program seems to perform multiple tasks at the same time. A new way to think about programming. So how to create thread, life cycle of a thread. So we have seen there are two methods to create a thread. One is extend java.lang class, lang.thread class. This thread class is in lang package, or implement runnable interface, which is also in lang package. So first we'll see how to create a class using thread class. So we have seen we have to provide a run method, and we have to create a thread and call start method. So this is very simple program. I'm creating a class. Is it visible? Should I zoom it? Is it visible? Sorry. So class my thread. This is the name of my class. Excuse me. Okay. Thank you. So class my thread extends thread. We are creating a thread using extend thread method. So this is my class extend thread. I'm creating two variables, name and string, name and message. And this is a constructor which assigns, which accepts name from user and message from user, and assigns to name and message of my thread class. So as these names are similar to my variables, I'm using this here. Then I have to write a run method. What I want the thread should do. See here, I'm in run method, I'm displaying name. Suppose thread 1 starts its execution, name of the thread starts its execution. This is just a normal message. Then in for loop, I'm saying some message 5 times. This loop will execute for 5 times. But when it executes a message, I want that thread should sleep. So when this thread is sleeping, another thread can enter into this for loop and print the message. And when it completes this task, 5 times it displays some message, it will come out and display this thread is finished. This is the simple code. So what I have done, I have created a class myThread with a constructor and a run method. Now how to create a thread, that I need so extends thread, then void run, and here I need a class where I can create the object of my thread class. So public class test in provide main. In main, I'm creating two threads. These are the objects of my thread class, MT1 and MT2. And similar to any other object, how we are creating object of complex class or how we are creating object of student class, similarly, I'm creating object of thread class. My thread MT1 is equal to new my thread. And this is the name of thread, thread1, and the message is ping. And another thread is thread2 and message is pong. So I'm creating two threads, MT1 and MT2. And I'm starting these threads, MT1.start, MT2.start. So when you say MT1.start, so this will call run method. It will call run method for thread 1. So it is not necessary that it will first call for MT1. System may choose this thread to execute first or to enter into the run method. So suppose MT1.start started executing. So it will enter into the run method. It will print this thread 1 starts its execution. Then it will enter into the for loop. Name is thread 1, says whatever the message is. What we send message, ping. So thread 1 says ping, and this thread will go to sleep. Meanwhile, system has scheduled another thread, say MT2.start. It will also enter into this run method. It will print thread 2 starts its execution, enter into the for loop. It will say thread 2, and what is the message? Pong. It will display pong, and it will also go to the sleep. When thread 1 finished the sleep, it will come back in a for loop and displays another message. So you can see this the output will be like this. So thread 1 started its execution, it says ping, then thread 2, it says pong. So you can see ping pong displayed 5 times. Then thread 1 finished its execution, thread 2 finished its execution. But you won't get the same output every time. It depends upon the scheduler which thread is scheduled first. I'd like to share this program with you. I have typed this code in Java editor. Wait a minute. Same code. I hope it is visible. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
So I have created a class mythread. Same program, I just copied it here. Message and run method. And I have created 2 threads, empty1.start and empty2.start. Start is a request, and it eventually enters into the run method. So if I run this code, so see here, thread 1 starts its execution. Thread 1 says ping, then thread 2 starts its execution, it says pong, and it is displaying ping pong 5 times. So this is how parallel threads executes, because why I am explaining you this. See, thread 1 finished its execution, thread 2 finished its execution. I can create as many threads as I want. Suppose I created third thread, say empty3 dot start. But for that I need to create object. What should be the message? Oh, or give some different message. Hello. Now we have created 3 threads, and I just started this thread. So if I run this code, see, thread 1 starts its execution, it says ping, now it is sleeping. Then thread 2 arrived, it is in execution, it says pong, now it is sleeping. Thread 3 started its execution, it says hello. Then thread 1 waked up, it says ping pong hello, ping pong hello, ping pong hello. Thread 1, thread 2, thread 3 finish their execution. So now these are 3 threads simultaneously executing the run method. Are you getting? Any queries about thread? This is with the help of extends class. If I want to implement the same program with the runnable interface, then what should be the change? Instead of extend thread, I have to write here
Implement runnable.
implements runnable. Then what should be the change? My class name is mythread, so I can create a constructor. This constructor will remain same, no problem. I need to provide a run method. This will also remain same, no problem. The problem or the change will be in main. I'm creating 3 objects of mythread class, but I cannot directly start with this. What I need to create thread class objects also. So thread P1 is equal to new thread And for this thread, I have to pass empty1, object of my thread class. Then create a thread 2. MP3, and then I have to call start method with T1, not with empty1. T1 dot start, T2 dot start, and T3 dot start. With empty1, now you can execute this code. So it is executing. So you can either go with thread or go with runnable interface, no problem. But if you want to extend more than one class, it is always recommended to go with runnable interface. In both the cases, you need to provide run method. Okay. I'm going to share this program with you, the slides with you. You try this code and try to create such parallelly executing programs. Now, if you have visited our Moodle page, I have posted one assignment. In previous lecture, we have seen 3 classical problems, how to solve these classical problems with semaphores. That was producer consumer, reader writer, and dining philosopher. Here I have posted one more problem which is called sleeping barber problem. So just read out the problem for you. I have posted it as in assignment section. So there is a barber shop which consists of a waiting room with n chairs and a barber room with 1 barber chair. So the situation is, if there are no customer is to be served, the barber goes to sleep. If all chairs are empty, there is no customer, barber should sleep. If customer enters the barber shop and chairs are occupied, this is the second case. If a customer enters and all the chairs are full, there is no space, then customer leaves the shop. It will not wait, it will just leave this shop. If barber is busy but chairs are available, barber is busy, we have just only one barber. So if it is serving a customer, if it is busy, then customer sits on one free chair. So customer will wait if the chairs are available. If barber is asleep, if first customer arrived, barber is sleeping, there is no one waiting for the barber, the customer wakes up the barber, then customer has to wake up the barber. So you have to write a code, not the complete program with threads and everything, not in Java or C++. You have to write a pseudocode that we have tested for reader writer or producer consumer. In that form, uh, just find out how many semaphores you may require and what is the procedure for barber and customer. So write a program to coordinate these barber and customer processes. Now problem is clear. There is no deadline. This is just an open-ended question which will give you some food for thought. Try to find out the solution. I will share the solution after I'm getting few responses. I have to check if you could think and come to that conclusion or solution. Problem is clear? Sleeping barber problem. Now we are moving towards the next part of our topic, which is called deadlock. What is a deadlock? In previous lecture, we have defined this term deadlock, live lock. What is a deadlock?
When both the process are waiting to go to the next process and the time wasted is the deadline.
None is able to proceed. They are waiting for each other and no process is able to proceed. So in this topic deadlock, we are going to see what is a system model, what are the characteristics that lead to a deadlock. These characteristics should be there, then the deadlock will happen. And if you want to avoid the deadlock, you have to make all these characteristics false. So method of handling deadlock, how to handle if deadlock occurred, then how to handle such deadlocks. There are various solutions, like you can prevent the deadlock. Don't allow deadlock to happen. Prevention is better than cure. So check for every process whether it will lead to a deadlock or not. If it leads to a deadlock, ask that process to wait. So that is deadlock prevention. We are going to see deadlock prevention algorithms. Deadlock avoidance. Don't allow the process to create a deadlock. Try to avoid the deadlock. Then deadlock detection. If deadlock is there, then try to find out which process is creating a deadlock and ask that process to preempt or stop forcefully. That is deadlock detection. And then recovery from the deadlock. How to come back to the previous state without a deadlock state. So how to recover from the deadlock. So we are going to go through all these points, and this is called deadlock handling. So deadlock problem is a set of processes. It is not only two processes, but we can have a set of blocked processes. Blocked means waiting processes, each holding a resource. The process is having one resource with it, any number of resources with it, and waiting to acquire a resource held by another process in the set. For example, suppose we have seen this example, semaphore example, P0 and P1. P1 has a acquired lock A and waiting for B, and P2 acquired B and waiting for A. So both the processes are waiting for each other. If system has two tape drives, P1 and P2, each holding one drive and waiting for another one. So this also leads to a deadlock. So to create a system model, we have seen this story. We know this story. So there is a narrow bridge and these two goats want to cross this river, and they can fight and both fell into the river, or they can cooperate with each other and they can cross this bridge successfully. But this problem is a deadlock problem. So either interrupt both the processes, or with some cooperation, communication, both the processes can execute successfully. Same thing, we have traffic rules, we have to follow lanes, and these are the vehicles following lane rules. But at this narrow bridge, the vehicles are in front of each other. So traffic only one direction, each section of a bridge can view as a resource. If deadlock occurs, it can be resolved if one car backs up. So either one car should move back and allow other car to move. That is preempt resource and rollback. In case of our process terms, preempt its resource. This road is a resource. So this has to leave that resource and roll back. Roll back means go to the previous state and allow this process to move ahead. If several cars may have been backed up, if deadlock occurs. So in this case, you can see just two cars, but if several cars are waiting for each other, you need to move or roll back more than one cars or more than one processes. Starvation is possible. You ask car to move which has traveled less or depending upon few criteria, and if every time the same car is chosen to roll back, that means lead to a starvation. I'm giving some real life examples just you to understand what is a deadlock. So in the system model, we call resources as R1, R2, R3, Rn. Processes as P1, P2, P3, Pn. Capital P we are using for process, capital R we are using for resource. Then resource, what is a resource? A resource can be CPU cycle, memory space, IO device, anything. A small register, starting from register to memory. Any resource that process needs for its execution is called a resource. We can have instances of the resources, means in case of registers, we didn't have only one register, right? We can have more than one registers in a system. So all these instances of a particular resource we called with, or we show with this W term. For example, in a lab, I have more than one printers. So printer is a resource, and each printer, each instance of that printer is W. Suppose I have 5 printers. So W1 to W5. These are 5 instances of printer. So each process utilize a resource as follows. It for suppose one process want to use this resource, it will first request. If the resource is available and allocated to that particular process, it will use that resource. And after use, if it has finished working with that resource, process must release that resource. So first request, use, and release. So these are the 4 characteristics which leads to a deadlock. If deadlock can arise if these 4 conditions hold simultaneously. If these 4 conditions are true at the same time, then deadlock can occur. So what are these 4 conditions? First one is mutual exclusion. Means only one process at a time can use a resource. What is mutual exclusion? No sharing. Process is not allowed to share the resource. It is once the resource is allocated to that process, only that process is supposed to use a resource. That is mutual exclusion. If this is the condition, then it can lead to a deadlock. Hold and wait. A process is holding at least one resource and waiting for additional resource. It also leads to a deadlock, which is held by another process. No preemption. You cannot forcefully ask any process to release that resource. A resource can be released only voluntarily by the process holding it. If the process has finished the task, then only the process can leave the resource. A system cannot force any process to preempt or to leave a particular resource. So that this condition is called no preemption. And circular wait. Circular wait means if P0 is waiting for P1, P1 is waiting for P2, P2 is waiting for P0 again. So this is called circular waiting. So last process is waiting for first process, and which creates a circle. So it will lead to a deadlock. Now, can you give me any example of a deadlock with and where these 4 conditions are satisfied? Yesterday we have seen some examples. Can you compare dining philosopher problem with this 4 conditions? Board is visible. Is this a deadlock condition? These are 5 philosophers sitting, and these are 5 forks, suppose. So what about mutual exclusion? Is it true in this case? What is mutual exclusion? No sharing. Once resource is allocated to a process, it is going to be used by that process. For example, if this philosopher pick up the right fork or left fork, it is not shared with another philosopher. So only one philosopher at a time can use a fork. Fork is a resource, philosopher is a process. So here, mutual exclusion. They are not sharing the forks with each other. Then say, what is the second condition? Second condition is hold and wait. Every philosopher has holded left fork and waiting for right fork. So hold and wait condition is true. Holding one resource and waiting for other resource. No preemption. You cannot force any philosopher to leave a fork. So that is no preemption. A resource can be released by a process voluntarily. And circular wait, first philosopher is waiting for last philosopher. This is waiting for this is waiting for this, he is waiting for this, like this. They are waiting each other in circular direction or circular fashion. So there exists a set of processes of waiting processes such that P0 is waiting for a resource which is held by P1. P1 is waiting for a resource that is held with P2 and so on. P4 is waiting for a resource held by P1 in a circular fashion. It is an ideal example of a deadlock. Now you can compare or you can find out such examples which are leading to a deadlock with these four conditions. Traffic jam. Can you explain traffic jam example with these four conditions? Mutual exclusion, hold and wait, no preemption, and circular wait. We can show this with a graph which is called resource allocation graph. So as a graph, it has vertices and edges. So vertices are partitioned into two types, process and resource. Processes are P1 to Pn, set of all the processes in the system. Resources are set of all resources in the system. We have two types of edges, request edge. If edge is from P1 to Ri, means P1 process is requesting resource R, and assignment edge means resource is allocated to a process when there is a edge from resource to process. So we can show process with a circle, resource with a square, and instance of the resources. If we have four instances of that particular resource, that we can show you with a small dots. So if P1 is requesting instance of R, so it is showing one arrow. If it want two instances, it has to show two arrows. So one arrow means process P is asking for one instance of resource Rj. And when there is an arrow from resource to a process, that means this particular instance is allocated to this particular process. Such graph is called resource allocation graph. Look at this graph and just tell me, is it a deadlock or not? How to read this graph? We have three processes and we have four types of resources, R1, R2, R1, R2, R3 and R4. And there is one instance of R1, one of R3, then two of R2 and three of R4. So is it a deadlock state or not? Or which process will execute first? Just read this graph properly and tell me what will be the sequence of execution. Which process will finish its execution first? So how to read this? P3? Yes.
P3 might be finishing first because it requires only R3, and then after
it is already
P3,
allocated. R3 is already allocated to P3. So P3 will execute first and release this resource. So current situation is P1 is holding R2 waiting for R1. R1 is held with P2. P2 is also holding one instance of R2 and waiting for R3. So P2 cannot proceed because it didn't have R3. P1 cannot proceed because it didn't have R1. But P3 can execute because it has R3, one instance of R3. So P3 will execute and release this resource. It means this arrow is removed from this diagram. Then the R3 is taken with P2. P2's requirement is finished. Then P2 can execute and release R1 as R2. And then P1 can execute because R1 is now available. Is it clear? Resource allocation graph. So sequence of execution is P3, P2 and P1. Now check, this is a resource allocation graph with deadlock. If P3 is also waiting for R2 and which is not available. So in this case, none of the process is able to execute, not P1, not P2, not P3, because P1 is waiting for P2, P2 is waiting for P3 and P3 is waiting for P1. So now can you check here all these four conditions are satisfied or not for a deadlock to occur? Mutual exclusion, they are not sharing the resources. If P1 is holding R2, it is not going to share that R2 with P2 or P3, right? So mutual exclusion is held, then it's true. What is the second condition? Hold and wait. P1 is holding R2, waiting for R1. P2 is holding R1, waiting for holding R1, R2 and waiting for R3. P3 is holding R3 and waiting for R2. So hold and wait. And what is third condition? Circular wait. Circular wait is P1 is waiting for P2, P2 waiting for P3, P3 waiting for P1. So that is circular wait. And which condition we missed? Mutual exclusion, hold and wait, no preemption. We are not asking any process to preempt and release the resource. If we ask P1 to stop forcefully and release these two resources, then P2 and P3 can execute. But if there is no preemption, this will lead to a deadlock. Now it is clear, these four conditions and resource allocation graph.
Yes, ma'am.
So you cannot say if there is a cycle, there is a deadlock. For example, in this case, you can see in previous example, we have seen cycle, but this was not a deadlock. Here, there was a cycle, but no deadlock. In second example, we have seen there was a cycle and deadlock. In this case, there is a cycle, but no deadlock. Why? P1 is holding R2, waiting for R1. P2 is holding R1. P3 is holding R1 and waiting for R2. And P4 is holding R2. So P2 and P4 can execute and release these resources. And so this, if one resource is released, then P3 can execute. And if this resource is released, P1 can execute, because these are the instances available. So there is no deadlock.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, how R2, that is one resource, is allocated to the two processes at a time? P1
There are
and
two
P2.
instances. There are two instances of this resource. These dots means instances. We have, for example, a printer is one resource, and if you have two printers, then these are two instances of resource printer. These dots means we have instances, those many instances of that particular resource. So one instance is allocated to P2, one instance is allocated to P3. So if P2 can execute because it has this resource, P2 completes the execution and return this instance back. Now this instance can be allocated to P1. P1 already has one instance of R2 and now it was requesting R1, it got R1, so P1 can execute. These dots means instances of that particular resource. In next lecture, we'll see how to prevent a deadlock with a Banker's algorithm. I'll stop here.